Okay, so we continue. Um, all right, so let's jump back in here and keep going. We're kind of wrapping up this sort of homoerotic Coriolanus thing. After I'm done with that, I'm going to want to go through and take a look at the women of Coriolanus, which I think are especially important and interesting. And then we're kind of done. One thing I would be curious to know from you guys is do you think you'd be able to watch Romeo and Juliet in some form without me? I don't really have a good way to get it to you. I mean, it's like it only costs a couple of bucks to rent, but I don't know. I didn't make you buy textbooks, so I was like, well, so it's not asking too much to just have them rent the movie. But then you might just be like, times are tough right now. Do I really want to spend $4 on a movie? But I think that may be where you're at. And of course, you don't have to watch Romeo and Juliet, but boy, is it going to make these lectures easier to follow. I love Romeo and Juliet, by the way. It's great. I'll tell you the great secret of Romeo and Juliet right now. Juliet is so much smarter than Romeo, and that's what it's about. Everybody misses that. Okay, so let's just jump back into this. All right. So Aufidius's response to Coriolanus, he says, "Look, I'm here to help you, or you can just go ahead and get it over with and kill me. But if you want to get revenge against Rome, let's do it." O Marcius, Marcius, each word thou hast spoke hath weeded from my heart a root of ancient envy. Right, meaning I hated you, I'm envious of you. But he says, every word you've said has made me feel better. If Jupiter should from yon cloud speak divine things and say 'tis true, I'd not believe them more than thee, all noble Marcius. Right, he says, I believe what you're saying. I don't think this is a trick. One of the great things about it is you can imagine another movie with another character in it who came and said, "Listen, join me, and let's let's attack Rome together." If your enemy came to you and was like, "I got this plan for us to team up," your first thought would be, "Is this guy trying to trick me? Right? Is he actually pretending to want to join up with me just so he can stab me in the back?" It's one of the great things about the play that even though they're great enemies, Aufidius can trust Coriolanus. He can completely trust him because Coriolanus would never lie. He just can't. He's in fucking capable of lying, which ironically makes him super trustworthy, even though he's saying, you know what we should do together? I'm going to be a traitor against my country. If someone's a traitor against their country, it should make them untrustworthy. But in Coriolanus's case, it makes him insanely trustworthy. There's no way because Coriolanus wouldn't lie. If Coriolanus wanted to fight Aufidius, he would say, "Hey, Aufidius, let's meet here and fight until one of us is dead." And Aufidius would be like, "Hell yeah, let's do it." So he knows he's not lying, which is a great, great detail. Shakespeare's great with character. Okay, so it says, "I can trust you." He says, "Let me twine mine arms about that body." Right? This is give me a hug. To twine your arms about that body is to give me a hug. But this is the moment in Shakespeare when the two great enemies embrace. They hug each other. Let me twine my arms against that body. Twine against a body too. This is also the metaphor there is drawn from like ivy leaves that are around a tree trunk. It is a very common metaphor that is used to describe people in love, because people in love are very tangled up in each other. And so it's very common to describe the man as being like the strong tree trunk and the women being like ivy leaves that curve around the trunk and, hold to it. So it's a very kind of, it's a little bit of a lovey-dovey metaphor, although you wouldn't necessarily notice it if it weren't for all the other gay things in his play that make it great. So he says, "Let me twine my arms against that body, where against my grained ash 100 times hath broke and scarred the moon with splinters." Grained ash there, he means his spears. His spears have hit Coriolanus's armor and exploded so high that they flew up to the moon. Here I clip. Clip again means embrace, like hug. This next one is an interesting line too. I don't want to spend a ton of time on it, but I like it. Here I clip the anvil of my sword. I just I just love that image so much. It's a metaphor, a simple one, and I just adore it. If you know what an anvil is, right? An anvil is like a very massive square of very heavy metal, and what you do with it is it's how you make swords. You put the sword when you're building a sword from scratch. You take an iron rod and you stick it in the fire till it heats up. And then you take it over to the anvil, which is very heavy and made of metal, and it has to be because any other material would explode. And you put the metal on the anvil, and then you can hammer it. Right? If you did that on wood, the metal would set the wood on fire. If you did it on marble, the marble would break. So you got to do it on an anvil. So the anvil is the thing that you use to bang the sword with a hammer until the sword becomes a sword. But he calls Coriolanus his anvil because just like the blacksmith would bang the sword against the anvil, Aufidius has been banging his sword against Coriolanus for years, over because when you're making a sword, you have to hit it over against the anvil over and over and over again, and that's how often Aufidius's sword has been smashed against Coriolanus's body. Um, all right. Don't want to say more. I kind of do. I'm going to say something slightly crazy here, and you feel free to ignore me for the next couple of minutes. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this, but I do want to point out some of the metaphors here are interesting. When Coriolanus first arrives, and I'm still on 26, when Coriolanus first arrives, one of the things that Aufidius says about him is he says, "Thou showest a noble vessel," meaning you seem like a noble person. Even though you're a raggedy homeless guy right now. I can see nobility in you, something admirable. But the word vessel there, I hate to do this, but I am going to do it. If you know your tarot cards, there's suits, and like in regular cards, there's like hearts and spades and diamonds and whatever the other one is. Just one more, right? Hearts and spades and diamonds and clubs. Hearts and spades and diamonds and clubs. But in tarot cards, there are swords and cups. So you can get so you can ten, like just like you have the 10 of hearts, you can have the 10 of swords in tarot cards, and you can have the 10 of cups in tarot cards or whatever. Cups and swords, I hate to do this goofiness to you, but cups and swords are the oldest metaphors that we have for men and women. The sword is a famous sort of image of men because, I don't know what to tell you guys, it's shaped like a penis. And the cups are a famous symbol for femininity because they hold things. The idea being that a woman's body holds a baby, and so the symbol for a woman is a cup, which receives, and the sword, is a big, long, hard thing that penetrates bodies. So I don't know what to tell you. That's life. I didn't make it up. It's just my job to tell you about it. So cups and swords are symbols for masculinity and femininity. It's interesting here that Coriolanus is described by Aufidius as being a vessel, because usually the word vessel is used to refer to women, because they are the ones that do the holding. And here Aufidius sees Coriolanus as there's something feminine about Coriolanus in the metaphor. It's not, again, it's not like he's saying, hey, you're a girl. It's just for me sitting in the audience, I'm going to notice that word is going to jump out at me a little bit, because it contains, there's something feminine about it. It's a metaphor that's often used to describe women, just like twining your arms around an oak tree is a kind of metaphor about ivy, clinging to an oak tree, just like Aufidius is going to cling to Coriolanus with his arms. And then this thing about the sword, you're my anvil. Again, if the sword is a symbol of masculinity, Aufidius is the masculine one, and because Coriolanus receives the sword, he's the one that he wants to put his sword into. I don't know what to tell you. Again, I want to be really clear. Students have the hardest time with this in all my classes, and I've never figured out how to really properly fix this. But students have a very difficult time with this. And what makes it tricky is that students always hear Coriolanus is gay and Aufidius is gay, because what students want to do is they just want to talk about the world of the play as if it's real and all these people are real. And I get that. It's not a bad idea. Please keep doing it. But just remember also, my point here has less to do with the characters and the world in which they live, and more to do with what Shakespeare is communicating to the audience. It's not that they are gay or these metaphors are supposed to be telling each other that they're gay for each other. It's that the audience is going to notice, even if the men don't, even if the characters they don't seem to ever really notice this, but I notice it sitting in my seat, that Shakespeare seems to be indicating something about the unconscious life of these two warriors and these two men for the audience, which is why in your papers it's very, very important. I can't get students to do this. It's the hardest thing, but you don't just talk about the world of the characters. Don't forget, someone wrote this play, Shakespeare, and someone is sitting in an audience looking at it. So be sure to say, why did Shakespeare write the play this way? He could have written it another way. And what audiences get out of it, because there's a lot of different plays to watch, and people go to this one specifically. So I want to know what's specific about this play. It's a crucial question, and you really got to think about it. It's really something that comes up again and again. So, all right, I've reached the end of this video. I'm going to make another one.